Which takes us to the next, I would say, chapter of the conversation, because we talked about different cultures, different places, and different norms. Immigration.
Yep.
And we are both immigrants.
Yes.
Coming from two different places.
Yes.
Having kind of the same experience but different flavors.
Yep.
Run me through
Yeah.
what was your experience, even though your culture looks superficially
so
similar
Irish
to
culture is
Australia.
quite similar. Around 10% of Australians have strong Irish heritage. Like the surnames, the old this and Mac this, most of those are of Irish background, right? Somewhere on the line. And particularly from the 1850s, there was a lot of immigration, continual immigration into Australia. And I think for me, that made it easier because I was coming to places without language barriers. There were colloquialisms in terms of phrase that were quite different, but not hard to pick up on. And obviously my wife being Australian, but that made it a lot easier because I was immediately into society with someone that was born and bred in society. That didn't mean it was without challenges, because there are still, particularly in Adelaide. Adelaide is it's a beautiful city, it's my home, but it can take time to be thought of as a local in many ways. So it can take a long time. And when I first arrived here as well, a lot of South Australians had not travelled near as much as they have nowadays. I found a lot more people wouldn't have been overseas very much as well. Compared to nowadays, a lot more younger people in the last 30 years would have travelled, like my wife did when I met her. She was backpacking around Europe. There is a much more openness there. But to me, the key was, how do I figure out the sensibility of Adelaide? What does that look like, right? In terms of the norms of behaviours and socialising and everything else. Whereas in Ireland, everybody socialises in the pub 5 days a week, kind of thing. Here is, no, you've got a barbecue, or you don't drink, you go to the pub. It's the only place you meet, right? And I just think you have to still calibrate yourself and your behaviours and your outlooks to that as well. Like the food is different. Obviously the weather's a lot different.
Sport is different.
I mean, Norse, yeah. So they're obviously AFL is a bit like Gaelic football.
Yeah.
But you're right. And Australia's sport obsessed. I mean, Ireland people that like the sport, but Australia's almost like a religious sometimes with sport and the focus on that as a channel of conversation, for example. But again, that's just one. So I think it's picking up on the core values inside. So in Australia is about this sort of what they call larrikinism, this sort of laid back view, which is very much an Irish thing as well.
Uh-huh.
We were very similar in that way. We couldn't be much more laid back in many ways
That's great.
than they are here. But that was one value that I could associate with quite readily. The other thing I did find as well is the tall poppy syndrome, is that when you are that person that says, I've done all these wonderful things, don't. If it comes up in conversations, fine. But you're not going to go into and say, I've done X, Y, and Z. You might say, you draw upon your experiences that you've had, but in a subliminal way, demonstrate your capability. It doesn't matter where those skills came from. The fact I travel a lot definitely shaped me as a project manager, there's no doubt about it. But it doesn't mean that I tell everybody I've worked in 21 countries.
Yeah, it's not using it in a conversation rather than having a publicity kind of thing.
Yeah, because there's what they call tall poppy syndrome, right? You'll be cut down quick enough if you try and do it. And that's fair enough. I think it's part of keeping your people in check and their behaviours in check, and that egalitarianism requires people to know that being different doesn't mean being better, or doesn't mean being worse, it just means being different. Right?
That's right. So, and professionally, your career, because you were working in Ireland before coming here.
Yeah.
So do you see any difference in terms of the working environment and practices?
Not a lot, I would say. We work some sort of 40-hour weeks, 4 weeks leave a year, very similar, and those norms are very similar.
And the hierarchy culture is quite similar?
So in that regard, again, I was also fortunate the company I worked for in Australia was the company I worked for in Ireland. Coincidentally, they haven't picked up work in South Australia when I was back in Ireland, and I found my way to wrangle across 3 countries to get here. I didn't find that, but I do know a lot of people who come from other environments, other backgrounds, would find this expression. So it's very much an Anglo-Celtic norm here. We are very Anglo-Celtic in Ireland.
Interesting.
And the dominant cultures of background is basically British or Irish. And so, like, when we're at home, we see ourselves as very different, the Irish and the English, for historical reasons.
Yeah, of course.
But when we're here, we find far more in common.
Right?
Yeah,
interesting.
Because I know England very well, I've worked there, I've known a family there. So what seems things of great division when you're at home are some more like uniting factors in many ways.